I welcome you all to another section of our class. This is the seventh video for this course. Research methodology. This is module 7, and the topic that we'll be treating in this module is data analysis techniques and analytical tools. In our previous modules, we were able to justify what we refer to as population and sample techniques and samples. We also looked at in our module 5, we also looked at data collection, and in our previous module we look at how to clean this data for a proper analysis to get a proper result. So now in this module we'll be looking at data analysis techniques and analytical tools, where we'll be discussing on the different techniques that we can use to analyze our data, and also the different tools that we can also use to analyze our data. So this module is what we can refer to as the analytical toolkit for modern research. So we have the contents of the module to be: one, we'll be looking at the quantitative data analysis using SPSS. So after that, we'll also move to the next subtopic, which is structural equation modeling. That's SEM for research analysis. Then we'll also look at qualitative data analysis using thematic analysis. Then we'll move on to systematic review analysis using Prisma framework. After that, we also look at critical appraisal using CASP tools. And after, we'll move on to the next subtopic, which is data analysis using Python and SQL. Also look at then engineering and scientific data analysis using MATLAB. And finally, the topic that we'll also be looking at, the subtopics under this module is the last one is interpretation and reporting of analytical output. So it's just to clear that contents that we mentioned, be it CASP, Python, SQL, SEM, and SPSS, and MATLAB and the likes, they are all analysis tools that we can use to carry out analysis in our research, in which we'll be justifying well enough in the contents of the module. So now we have the introduction to read that data analysis is there to represent the transformative process through which raw information or raw data becomes meaningful knowledge. So the choice of analytical approach is fundamentally shapes research outcomes, and also quantitative analysis employs statistical and mathematical techniques to test hypotheses. I believe we've been saying this over and over again during the course of this course, that quantitative deals with statistics and numerical aspects, while qualitative is more fundamentally is different approach, focusing on is more of expository and explorating an interpretation of the context. So now quantitative analysis, it employs statistical and mathematical techniques to test hypotheses, while qualitative, on the other hand, it takes a fundamental different approach, focusing on interpretation of meaning. And also, we should not forget that systematic approaches to research synthesis, has become increasingly important as the volume of published research that has expanded exponentially. And also, computational tools have revolutionized data analysis capabilities across research domains. So now let's move on to the big picture. And what's this big picture? It is choosing your analytical path. That is taking a careful path where we have to decide or choose your analytical path. So this is like the big thing to decide on, and that's why it is called the big picture. So you let your research question be your guide. In doing this, in achieving this, in choosing your analytical path, one important thing that is very essential is to ensure that your research question is your guide, so that you won't be answering different thing entirely. So that you'll be answering your research question. Your analysis will be answering your research question. So now we have quantitative analysis, for instance. When we are talking about choosing your analytical path, it could be quantitative, it could be qualitative, it could be synthesis and appraisal, it could be programming and engineering. So let's take it one after the other. Quantitative analysis is there for numerical data, testing hypotheses and measuring relationships. So whenever if you want to carry out analysis that has to do with statistics, numeric data and all, you make use of quantitative. And the tools to use for quantitative is, we have instances like SPSS, Python, price over and start model. Also, we have the qualitative analysis, and this is used for text, for audio, for visual data, exploring meanings and experiences. So the tools that we have under this is thematic analysis, NBVO, and atlas, and the likes. So we also have synthesis and appraisal, and this is there for making sense of existing research literature. This is more have to do with research literature, and tools to use are like we have Prisma that deals with systematic reviews. We have CASP, which is mainly for critical appraisal, and finally we have programming and engineering, and this is used for large data sets, automation, and specialized computation. And the tools that can be used for this analysis are also Python or Pandas, SQL, and MATLAB. So the right tool for the right job, you ensure to make sure that you are using the right tool for the right job, so that it won't get mixed up at the end of the day. So let's move on to quantitative analysis now, and the SPSS workbench. So statistical analysis with a point and click interface. This is all about this is what quantitative is all about. So what it is that the classic user-friendly statistical software for the social sciences, business, and health research. So when we are talking about core workflow in quantitative analysis, we have is define variables, enter and clean data, analyze via menus and the likes, interpret output. Um, Define variables in variable view, and enter cleaning data in data view is analyze via menus and interpret outputs in the viewer window. So key strengths of quantitative analysis, that is the SPSS workbench, is that the SPSS workbench, the key strength is that it's one, accessible for non-programmers. It is accessible for non-programmers, and also excellent for standard statistical tests and good data management. One of the limitations for this is it is less flexible for complex or custom analysis than programming languages. It is ideal for surveys, experiments, and standard inferential statistics. So now let's go in deeper. Talking about the structural equation modeling, that's the same. It has to do with testing complex theoretical models. What it is that it is a powerful multivariate technique that tests network of relationships between observed variables and latents. So it constructs unobserved concepts like satisfaction or intelligence. Two parts model, we have the measurement model, the structural model. So when we're talking about the measurement model, it has to do with how well do your survey questions measure the hidden concepts. You understand, that is the confirmatory factor analysis, that's CFA. How well do your survey questions measure the hidden concepts, you understand. So structural model on the other hand, it has to do with what are the hypothesized causal relationship between the concepts. So the use case, it might be testing complex theories in psychology, in marketing, testing complex theories in psychology. It could be testing complex theories in marketing, in organizational behavior, and the likes. For example, we have how does leadership influence team performance through trust and communication. So you can use that as a case study to test complex theories in psychology. That's all. Like moving on to the next subtopic, which is qualitative analysis. Now, all that is we're looking at the thematic analysis. So this is all about finding patterns of meaning in text. This qualitative analysis is all about finding patterns of meaning in text. So what it is that it's a method for identifying, analyzing, reporting themes. That is, these themes could also be known as patterns of meaning. So you understand, another word that we can call this theme is patterns of meaning. So the method for identifying these themes and analyzing and reporting the themes within qualitative data like interview transcripts, which could, like, for instance. So the core process, according to Bohr and Clark, is one you have familiarization with data. You get yourself familiarized with the data that you'll be using for the analysis. Then the second one is generating initial codes, and the third one is searching for themes in your data. Then the fourth one is reviewing themes. After searching for your themes, you try to review it to know which one is fitted more. Then the fifth one is defining and naming the themes. You try to define the themes and segment them if necessary. And the last one is producing the report, and then carrying out the analysis and taking out your report. Now, when we're talking about flexibility in qualitative analysis, It can be inductive, that is, it could be data driven, or deductive, which could also be theory driven. It could be semantic, which is the surface meaning, or latent, that is the underlying ideas. So qualitative analysis is very flexible, because in the sense that you can carry out your analysis based on the data that you are using for your research, or it could also be based on the theory that you are using for your research. It could also be the template, the connotative, semantic meaning, or the denotative meaning, or also the latent underlying ideas. So the tools that we can use for this is the tools can be done manually or aided by software like NVivo. So your method for answering how and why questions with rich textures. This is all about qualitative analysis. So let's move on to the next subtopic, which is synthesizing evidence. That is the systematic review and so standard. This is standard for evidence-based conclusion. What it is that it is a rigorous method to identify, to appraise, and synthesize all relevant studies on a specific research questions. Once again, it is a rigorous method. So the synthesizing evidence is a rigorous method in identifying, in praising, and in appraise and synthesizing all relevant studies on a specific research questions. So we have the Prisma framework now, which and the Prisma framework is the standard reporting guideline. It is a famous flow diagram document. A flow diagram documents the search and selection process transparently. The key steps in doing this, in achieving this, is one, you define protocol and register it. So after that, you move on to comprehensive literature research. Then you also look at screen studies, that is, which could be the title, abstract, or full text. And we have the extract, data, and access quality, e.g. with CASP, and synthesize findings, narrative or meta-analysis. Purpose. The purpose of this is to provide the highest level of evidence to inform practice and policy. Now, appraising evidence. Now, the CASP. How do we use the CASP for appraising evidence? That is how to critically appraise research paper. So what it is the critical appraisal skills program. That's the CASP. CASP is the critical appraisal skills program that provides simple structured checklists to evaluate the quality of different study types. So these different checklists for different designs. We have RCTs, cohort studies, qualitative research, systematic reviews, and the likes. So we also have the three core questions each checklist asks. One is, are the results valid? Then the second one is, what are the results? And the third question is, are the results useful locally? So these are the three core questions each checklist asks. So when we are talking about if the result is valid, this has to do with the methodological rigor. For instance, was randomization done properly? So for the questions, for the second question, which is what are the results, we'll be looking at the size and precision of the effects. For instance, what is the confidence interval and the likes. So the third question, which is, are the results useful locally? And in this, we'll be noticing the applicability to your context. So why this matters is that it allows you to weigh the strength of the evidence before using it. So your critical thinking toolkit for research, for consuming research. Now, we also move on to the programmer's toolkit, which is the Python and Pandas. So we can also say that the data handling analysis and analysis at scale. Python is a general purpose programming language that has become the number one, like hashtag number one tool for data science. Python is mainly is the most generally or acceptable one tool for data science, while Pandas is the essential Python library for data manipulation. So we are looking at the data frame. So we have the core data structure, like a super powered Excel table capabilities. So where we have to cleaning messy data, merging data sets, aggregating and the likes. So why do we have to learn it? Because it handles large data sets that Excel cannot. So, and it also automates repetitive tasks and also reproducible analysis, gateway to machine learning. So and the likes. So let's move on to talking to databases. That is using SQL for analysis. And this has to do with the language of data extraction. What this is SQL? What this is what SQL is that it is used to communicate with relational databases where most organizational data lives. So core concept is that you select data from tables where conditions are met, group by categories and order by results. The analytical power is we have joins, its aggregations and window functions. So now let's move on to specialized computation, where we have MATLAB for science and engineering. MATLAB for science and engineering. What is MATLAB for science and engineering? It implies a high performance language and environment for matrix operations, algorithm development, and numerical simulations. So the key strength is that it is matrix based, toolboxes and powerful visualization. Matrix based in the sense that it is built for linear algebra. Operation on O arrays are fast and easy. The toolbox is that it is specialized. There is specialized add-ons for signal processing, image analysis, control system, finance, etc., and the likes. Now let's move on to the typical uses, where we have simulating physical systems, processing sensor, which could be audio, image, or data, developing control algorithms, solving complex mathematical models, and ecosystem. For the ecosystem, we have that it is more specialized than Python. So this is the MATLAB is more specialized than Python. It's dominant in many engineering and physics disciplines. So it is just like the go-to for modeling, simulation, and signal processing in engineering. So now let's move on to the from output to insight, that is interpretation, which is the interpretation and reporting. So in this interpretation and reporting output is there, we can say is explaining what the numbers, the teams or models mean in the contents of your research question. This is just like, are you trying to explain further or giving us additional information about your output, about your data. So it has to do with explaining the numbers or teams or models or models that is mean in the context of your research questions. Now the key principles for this interpretation and reporting is that one, we have statistical versus practical significance. This is to tell us that under this, a tiny effect can be statistically significant with a huge sample. Is it meaningful in the real world? So these are the questions that and the second one is effective size matters. So always report alongside p-values. You should make sure that you always report alongside p-values, and we know what p-values is. So now the third one is acknowledge limitations. In doing this, by doing this, you have what could your design or data not tell you. This threatens credibility. You understand? And the fourth one is you connect to theory or prior research. By then you try to do your result support, contradict or extend existing knowledge. So let's move on to the common pitfalls in data. So mistake to activity that needs to be avoided. So the common pitfalls in data analysis, the common mistakes, pitfalls in data analysis. What are those common errors and blunders when we are carrying out data analysis? We have one to be misapplication, that is using the wrong application for the analysis. You are misapplying the tools that needs to be used. That is using SEM for simple descriptive questions or thematic analysis to count frequencies. You understand, it is different thing entirely, and it will definitely jeopardize the research or your work as a researcher. So two is p-hacking or significance chasing. So this has to do with running endless tests until something is significant. So these procedures false positives. And the third one is ignoring assumptions. That is running a t-test on non-normal data or a regression without checking for multicollinear, overlooking data analysis. Sorry about that. The fourth one is overlooking data analysis. Analyzing data you haven't cleaned. Analyzing data that you have not cleaned, missing values or outliers. And the fifth one is black box analysis, that is using complex methods, e.g., machine and the likes. So selective reporting is also another common pitfall in data analysis. In conclusion, the key takeaways and final thoughts: it master the craft, not just the software. There is no best tools or techniques, only the most appropriate. You can't have that this is the best tools. You can just try to ensure that you use the appropriate one for your specific research and research question and data. We also have that foundational understanding of statistics and methodology is more important than knowing which button to click. So, and the modern researchers benefit from being multilingual, comfortable with both quantitative and qualitative logic, and aware of computational tools.